All right, Scott, you're good.
Good evening, everybody, at Cornerstone Home Inspection Education. Tonight's speaker is going to be from Azek Interiors, Daniel Maraccio. And I met him at one of the home shows with great presentation. So hopefully you guys get a lot of good information tonight. So it's all yours, Dan.
Hello, everybody. So I am the area sales manager for Azek in the Rhode Island and Southeastern Massachusetts region. I'm here to talk about Azek Exteriors. And without further ado, here we go. Everybody can see this, right?
Yes.
All right. So the learning objectives for this presentation is to define resilience, to discuss what it means with resilience in mind, examine the relationship between building resilience and the safety of its occupants in the building, discuss material selection and considerations for ensuring the structure maintains a livable conditions in destructive weather events, and examine the physical properties and performance attributes of polymer siding, trim, and capped polymer cladding, and discuss why polymers can create resistant exteriors, safeguarding the building against natural and man-made events. So the agenda is designing with resilience in mind, resilient siding and trim, resilient cladding and panels. We'll discuss a case study and a conclusion with questions. Okay. So resilience. So this is how the National Infrastructure Advisory Council defines resilience. Infrastructure resilience is the ability to reduce the magnitude and/or duration of disruptive events. The effectiveness of resilience infrastructure and enterprise depends on the ability to anticipate, absorb, and adapt, and/or rapidly recover from potential disruptive events. FEMA also has a resilience definition as well, which you see below. So resilience design is the intentional design of buildings, landscape, communities, and regions in order to respond to natural or man-made disasters. That's from the Resilient Design Institute. And you also have there FEMA's resilience definition as well. So building resilience requires us to learn from the outcomes of past disasters, adapt to the ongoing unpredictable changes of climate or environment, confront vulnerability and frailties, assess our strengths, accept that some risks can't be eliminated completely, right? Plan for all probable future hazards, stresses, and acute shocks, and recognize the relationship between what we build and where we build it and how we build it and what materials we use. So this is just an example of what manufacturers face when they're looking at materials and how to build them. Obviously, you see there on the West Coast, you're dealing predominantly with fires. So fire resistance is important. You're looking at hurricane winds down by the Gulf regions. You've got a lot of rain. And obviously, up here in the Northeast, we've got everything from extreme cold temperatures to rain. Moisture resistance, obviously the key in most of these regions. Flooding is the nation's #1 natural disaster, and it occurs inland and on the coast. So number one is moisture resistance in all building material applications. How to achieve resilience in the building of scale. Obviously, we want to create beautiful buildings, design buildings that handle weather events, create buildings that will maintain livable conditions, create buildings using durable materials, specify that obviously what materials we're going to choose to achieve that. Resilience and sustainability, climate responsive design strategies to build better performing durable buildings while minimizing the environmental impact. Perform better over the long term, resilience on raw materials that can contain recycled content. That's really important in today's buildings. Low maintenance and salvageable and reusable materials. Material selection considerations, application and location, day-to-day stresses, weather, and disaster scenarios, and physical properties. Benefits of a resilient home. So you're more likely to remain habitable and less likely to be disrupted in a weather event. less likely to incur costly repairs, lower maintenance and life cycle costs. Possessions are protected, as well as the occupants. Building long-term security is enhanced. So we'll go over some of our options here: resilient cladding, siding, and trim. These are just some homes that feature some of our products on there. So obviously, when we're looking at the materials we use, we're going to look at what's existing, right? And what you see there on the top is all the issues that arrive with wood. The wood that you buy today is not the same as the wood that was purchased 50 years ago. Wood is not being allowed to mature, which means you're getting inferior product. Product is not lasting as long as is shown on these slides here. You have more of a chance of rot, more of a chance of mold, and ground contact is an issue. When we create materials, we also want to make sure that no special tools are required, no special respirators or harmful dust that's created from our products. The cut ends do not require protection, and that products are recycled or made from recycled material. One thing that I'm really proud of being with Azek is that we are the world's largest recycler of PVC products. We actually just purchased another recycling facility to increase or decrease our carbon footprint. We actually will create mobile recycling bays with a lot of our dealer partners. We'll send them out to job sites, and we'll collect a lot of old vinyl siding that's being torn off, and we will repurpose that. Our decking, our composite decking is 85% recycled material, and our PVC decking is 50% recycled material. We continue to increase those numbers as we go on. Obviously, being a company that creates something beautiful from trash and eliminates the need for landfills of this product is kind of a huge part of what we do, and something that I'm really proud of. Does anybody remember how does the Resilient Design Institute suggest we achieve resilience at the building scale? It's a quick question for you guys. Nope, no takers. All right, so the answer is, so we will be, we'll be loved and maintained, can handle weather events, will maintain livable conditions in the event of a disaster, use durable materials that will not suffer permanent damage in the event of a disaster, and use products made with renewable, reclaimed, or recycled materials. Resilient siding and trim. So what I want to do with this is, so when we talk about resilient siding and trim, we want to talk about what's the alternative to our products, right? What is currently in the market? So the first would be wood, right? What are the pros of wood siding or trim? It's low cost, it's readily available, has natural colors and an inherent beauty to it, easy to work with, and low thermal expansion and contraction. Cons. It can vary, right? And you've got warps, twists, quality of wood is not the same. Needs constant protection, high life cycle costs, and there's no warranty on the substrate. Fiber cement, which we just were talking about earlier, it's easily it's pretty dominant in our market. Easily paintable, Class A fire rating, can install with a finished nail. We just talked about that. Warranty up to 15 years. The cons, it's difficult to work with. It's not suitable for ground contact. Cannot get moisture. Needs protection constantly. Heavy and brittle, and takes a longer install time. The other thing that's not in here is for cutting it. In some municipalities, you actually need to, you definitely should be wearing a respirator when you install hardy siding if you're cutting it. Engineered wood, so relatively low cost, dimensionally consistent, easily painted, has a warranty of 25 to 50 years, has a realistic wood grain appearance. Cons, it's not suitable for grade contact, needs protection, cut ends must be painted or it voids the warranty. High life cycle costs. So moisture absorption and paint adhesion. So this is one of the issues with wood. As you know, with moisture in the air, wood will expand and then contract. And what ends up happening is you get more, the wood starts to flake and pull back from the product. which is why when those homeowners are looking to replace their their wood cladding or the wood siding, the costs are tremendously high to have somebody come and scrape down all the paint to repaint that siding. And obviously it can support growth of mold and mildew as well. This is another example of wood siding. You'll see here visible water damage and extensive rot and mold growth underneath the siding, which can cause a lot of damage and issues. This is an example of a home that's done all in Azek. So we've got our straight shingle here. We have our polymer trim, and we have our board and batten, which is gaining a lot of popularity now in this market. This is a look at the different types of shingle panels that we offer. We'll go a little bit more in depth on that. So we have the straight shingle, edge shingles, and we have the staggered shingles. We have profiles of 5, 6, and 7-inch reveal. As you see here, it's a 48-inch sheet, and we has a variable keyway, which allows it to have that look that looks just like wood. We're doing a marketing concept of just like wood, and these are 2 examples of siding. One is ours and one is wood, and it's very difficult to tell which one is which. Polymer board and batten siding, we'll get into that. You'll see there the accents. Let me back up here. So this is an example of paint left on our polymer product. So this is 13 days out in the inclement weather. That's fiber cement and poly ash, just so you can see how the weather affects the paint on the product. So one thing that's really important with our products is making sure that you have light reflective value of 55 or higher on our products, and especially if you go darker on the scale, you have to go higher. And this is an example of that. We want to make sure that we have approved paints on our Azek exterior site, and we combine with a lot of other brands. So whether you use Sherwin-Williams or Behr or whatever you want to use, it's on our site. So any builder that wants to use their site just has to check on that LRV scale just to make sure that it's approved by us. Do you guys, just another question, you guys recall the performance attributes of polymer siding, trim, and molding? Anybody?
Moisture resistant. Scott?
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
So do you remember do you recall the attributes of polymer siding, trim, and molding?
Oh,
Long lasting, environmentally safe,
UV resistant,
recyclable.
So moisture resistant, insect resistant, which is always nice. Impervious to mold and mildew, will not rot or peel, will not twist or warp, will not splinter or split. Consistent quality. It is the dominant trim product in New England for all these features. It was literally made for this market. Resilient cladding. I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of cladding projects in your market. It's definitely a growing category for us. This is an example of wood cladding and typically what you see over the long term. Obviously, you see that weathering effect and UV exposure. And here's an example of the products we use. This is our cap polymer, 100% synthetic, co-extruded cellular PVC core, capped on all sides with a virgin PVC, and we added a nice striated wood grain pattern to it. This is an example of a house done. Used to cover the entire building, an envelope and an accent wall. Will not rot, will not mildew, will not fade. It has a 50-year stain and fade on the product, and it has a lifespan of forever, essentially. Here's examples of our product and a wood product over time. So one big thing about the cap polymer is there's obviously a lot of PVC or PVC deckings out on the market. Just make sure that the brand that's being used has been approved for cladding. Not all of them have that compliance. So just make sure that that product is approved for cladding. Benefits of clad. So the aesthetics, low maintenance, weatherability, and it reduces heat buildup. And you'll see here some really nice color profiles that we offer for that cladding. Obviously, more on that and a couple more looks. It's also lightweight. PVC is a very lightweight product. It's easy to cut. It's easy to install. So unlike other materials, wood or composite products, contractors enjoy working with this product because it's very easy to use.
Looks like it's more for more contemporary style homes. Do you find that?
So, yeah. So what we're actually finding too is a lot of commercial applications. There's actually some Stop and Shop chains that have signed up to do this. There's also I think it's the Hiltons. Some Hiltons have started doing this. It's so they'll do like a wood accent followed by a brick accent.
Apartment buildings, new construction apartment buildings. I see a lot of it.
Yep. So you're going to see more growth of it as people are trying to adopt that wood-like look and that warmth to the outside of their buildings. There's I believe some Dunkin' Donuts have started doing it as well. Here's some examples of some buildings that we did as far as the accents and the looks.
That's beautiful.
Is it easily repairable? You can cut out wood, replace section of the clapboard, and
yeah. So it's it's that PVC decking material. So it's definitely any type of scratching or defacement can be easily fixed, most likely with a heat gun. But yeah, you can definitely replace pieces if you need it. But the idea behind it is that it's very low maintenance and long lasting products. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but you definitely could. These are examples of open and closed joint cladding that we offer. I'll go into that right now. So this is an open joint cladding system. So you'll see the house frame there, weather resistant barrier behind that. Then you would apply a furring strip. This is the open joint cladding, and then that's your foundation beneath there. We do have different profiles. We have a 1 by almost 7.5, 1 by 4, and a 1 by 5.5. Nice thing about that is you can get variable widths to just kind of have that different look if you want to create different patterns. Here it is on the right, just going into a corner. This is the closed joint cladding system, more of a tongue and grooved application. With that one, we do have 2 different size profiles on that. Very similar application to the previous one, other than the fact that you're closing it instead of opening it. You want to install it over weather-resistant wall assemblies, boards held off the face. The product needs to breathe, so you definitely don't want to, butt it up tight against the wall. So that's why the furring strips are recommended, just because you want it off.
You're saying if a builder uses like those zip paneling, the zip siding, and you have to fur it out.
Yeah.
On top of that.
Yeah, the product has to breathe. It can't be flush to the wall. So remember, PVC moves. So if you're sticking it on there, it's gonna create problems if you don't pull it off the wall.
Similar to decks, right, Dan? Because you have to have the airflow underneath, but a lot of people fail to do.
Exactly.
If it's hose in the sides, right?
Yep. Here's an example. It's kind of funny that this is here, but our products are heat bendable. You can literally turn it into whatever you want. It looks like they turned it into a noodle right there. But those are just some of the options. You can do turns, 90-degree turns, whatever you want.
Will it, when you're furring it, it's not against a flat surface. Will it have a tendency to warp a little bit? Yes, no, maybe.
If you're furring it, or if you're not furring
it? If you're furring it.
It shouldn't. If you're fastening it correctly per our install manual, it should not do that.
Okay. How far are the furring strips? Roughly 12, 16? What's the?
I believe it was 12 from what I saw. I can I can follow up with the install manual on that, but I believe it's 12. So this is just an example of our panelized systems on a house. This is another kind of a more modern look per se. You're going to install it over, weather-resistant wall assemblies. Boards are held off the face of the substrate walls by furring strips. Same thing. Can be attached by a hidden fastener system or an exposed stainless steel fastener. Again, stainless steel being the key. Panels can be finished or coated in the field. So we do offer pre-finishing with some of our distributors with a 15-year warranty on these. Or we do offer a product called Paint Pro, which I'll get into later on, which you can paint yourself. This is just more examples of different clad buildings that you'll see. And you'll see that, brick wood combo pretty often, especially in this market. This is a home we did where we kind of had at it, and we obviously did a lot of different methods here. We actually have a video on it that I'll show you shortly. This home has our trim, our cladding, and our sheet siding.
And most of this is all pre-finished, correct? A lot of that stuff.
Yeah, so that's So the cladding is our decking, so it's going to have its own embossment. The trim can be pre-finished, and the sheets can also be pre-finished if you choose, or you can paint it yourself. Just again, remember to adhere to the light reflectivity of the paint that we recommend. Let's see the cladding. This is just showing you guys like our different family of brands. So Azek Exteriors is anything outside the home as far as trim, siding, cladding. Then we have our TimberTech by Azek. This is our decking and our rails. So everything in that family. And then our structure, which is kind of a newer family, but this is pergolas, cabana systems. This is kind of our family of brands. We've also have Ultralocks as well within our family of brands. But this is our main family, I would say. So why Azek as far as a leader in trim? So we're the #1 leader in trim molding. Obviously, there's a lot of contractors and builders that respect our products, know our products, and have used it for years. We have a full product portfolio. We're pretty much synonymous with innovation within that line. And a lot of our architects spec our products. Do people swap it out for other materials? Yes, but they do spec our products. It's moisture resistant, weather resistant, it's durable, rot resistant, it's lightweight, insect resistant, which is always nice. This is a yacht club building that we did. It's really nice. So product portfolio, trim and siding. So we have a vast portfolio of products. This is more on that Paint Pro pre-finished products with warranties on the paint. And this is just kind of like a big breakdown of all of our siding features. The other nice thing about Azek trim is we do apply a protective film on one side. Nice thing about that is during a job site construction, the builder can fasten the product, and then when they're done at the end, they rip that off and they have a nice clean board with no smudges or any type of bad looks to it. So that's a nice little feature for trim. Not all of them do it. This is more about that Paint Pro technology that I was kind of led about. When you take normal trim, there's an ingredient that we put in there. It's called titanium dioxide. It's a very expensive ingredient. We add that so that basically it doesn't yellow in the sun. Paint Pro is kind of the opposite of that. It's a product that we used as a trim that's almost like a pre-primed trim. It doesn't require any sanding, any priming, no prep whatsoever. Has faster dry times. It dries in 30 minutes and it cures in about 24 hours. It has a superior paint adhesion and a stronger bond. You actually, if you don't paint trim correctly, I don't know if some of you have seen it, you could actually scrape it off with your nails. With this product, you can't once it cures. Oops, sorry. So the really great product, and we're seeing a lot of growth in this category. As obviously black windows are a thing now. So is black trim or colored trim is definitely seeing a lot of growth in this category. Cladding, we kind of talked about it, but this is just kind of highlighting the 50-year stain and fade warranty, which is massive. 30-year limited lifetime warranty on the product. These are some of the different color options we offer for cladding, whether it's grays to browns. just kind of showing more of those colors and looks. Mahogany is definitely a large grower for us. I believe there's Stop and Shops in this area that are adding this as an accent to the brick. This is just kind of an example of, service, what weather does, right? So as far as PVC compared to wood, you'll see here 2 different pieces, and then the one on the right is one that's been exposed to the elements, while our product hasn't changed at all. 100% synthetic throughout, 25 to 35% lighter than composite material. So this goes back to the easier to work with, easier to cut. This is that heat management that we talked about earlier, almost about the 30 degrees cooler than composite material. So definitely the choice if you're concerned, if you have a deck by a pool and you're concerned about little kids running on it, PVC is definitely the way to go. It's a synthetic product, no organic material, so it's completely water resistant, which is huge in this market. We're doing a campaign that started last year, and it's basically a which one is wood. I'll give you a hint. There's 2 products in here that are wood. Anybody care to guess which ones are wood or which ones are not?
Well, I'd say third. Well, I'm looking at this one. Third one from the right in the middle there. Is that wood?
That is wood, yep.
And the one all the way to the left? Possibly.
That is not.
The one to the right of it?
Yeah, so this one is not, and this one is not. And these are.
The one in the middle.
Yep, this is wood for sure. So it's a really cool campaign we're doing just to show people how far and the embossments on PVC have gone, and how they're really mimicking that grain pattern really well with wood now.
Daniel, we have a question. How fire resistant is the material?
So we actually have Class A flame spread on our PVC material is all flame rated. So the composite decking has wood fiber in it. So while it does offer some wood fire resistance, I would say our PVC material is the one that's flame rated. So it's very resistant to fire.
Do you ever think about getting into roofing material?
One thing, so long story short, we are talking about doing a complete envelope. Our plan is to do one warranty, one product for everything. Right now, we're still kind of in the throes of siding and figuring out that part. Definitely not something we would say no to down the road, but definitely something really far down the road, I would say. So that was, let's see. And then these are just resources that we offer going forward. The other nice thing that I think I mentioned earlier is, in the Northeast, we have about 12 Azek reps in this market. So in terms of support going forward, if you guys need anything, if you go to a job site and things just don't look right, definitely reach out to us anytime. We're more than happy to take a look, compare it to what we call for in our install guides. And we can definitely help you out if you have anything that just doesn't seem right in your market. So please feel free to reach out to us. That's kind of why we're here. And that's pretty much the end of my slide here. I'd be willing to take any more questions if you have any.
Can you talk from I was talking to you earlier from an inspector point of view? We come up, we see a lot of your product used improperly, fastened improperly. Can you talk about proper fastening on a lot of the trim? We see on a lot of the houses, it's not fastened properly. And what your thoughts are on that? Yeah,
so generally we tend to recommend Cortex screws and plugs for the most part. Stainless steel for sure. Obviously, you guys have seen finished nails being used on products. That's definitely, we don't want to see rust stains and things like that. That's a no-go. And I think we talked about how, some people are in it for the long term and some people just want to get rid of that house and kind of move on. They don't care about the after effects. But yeah, that's typically what we would recommend. And then the big rule of thumb is, 2 inches from the end of the board. So every 12 to 18 feet, you pretty much want to have an 1/8 of an inch gap between each board. And then 2 inches from the end, it should be a fastener. The amount of space that you limit towards the end of the fastener is the amount you're going to limit for that expansion and contraction. Like I was saying earlier, what we find is some people start to cheat further in, and then that's where they get into trouble on the expansion and contraction for the most part.
And can you talk about the mushroom? Why where you see some mushrooming on near the
Decking?
fastener? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have composite decking, and composite decking has wood fiber filaments in there. So with PVC, I think what happens sometimes is people get confused between the two products. If they're used to using PVC, you can take a Cortex screw and go ahead and screw it through and plug it, and then you're done. Composite decking is a more denser material. It has wood filaments in there. So if you're driving a screw through without pre-drilling it, that material has nowhere to go. It's displaced, and the only place it's going to go is the path of least resistance, which is up through the cap. So we call for all of our composite decking to be pre-drilled. It's funny because whenever I go out to a job site, I ask them, "Oh, did you pre-drill?" And then they're like, "Oh, yeah." And then I'm like, "Well, what drill bit did you use?" And they don't know. And then that's when you know you're like, "Aha." But yeah, definitely pre-drill all composite, and that's not just for us; it's any composite decking. If they don't pre-drill it, you're going to have mushrooming, and that's a telltale sign that it was not pre-drilled.
What do you recommend as far as spacing? You know, maybe on like a 1x6, 1x8. What do you recommend on spacing of those fasteners? Two on the boards. 12 inches apart, 16. What is the manufacturer spec?
So definitely two per joist. And then what I would say is we are rated for 16 on all our products. For PVC, we prefer 12-inch spacing.
On
But
the joist, floor joist.
Yeah, but
right.
we are rated for 16 on all products. We think that if you do PVC on a 12, it's going to limit the expansion more, and it's just going to have a more solid feel to the deck, especially when it gets really hot outside. You're just going to have a firmer feel as you walk on it.
How about when you install them on a diagonal? I mean, like some people say 16, some people say 12 on center with your Azek decking. What about steps and diagonal? What's the spacing do you recommend on steps and decking?
I mean, I would always default to the lower of the 12 if you can do it, just because again it'd be a firmer step.
Is it now? I've heard that. Well, I'm just going to use my deck. I did 9. Believe it or not, it called for 9 on the steps. Is that not unheard of with your product?
Yeah, that would be fine
on the stringers.
Yep.
And sometimes they'll see the builders, because I don't know if they're cheap or lazy. They'll put one guy. Everybody out here has probably saw they'll put one of the Cortex screws. Say you got a 1x4 or 1x6, corner trim, and they put one screw in the center.
Yeah, I definitely would not recommend that. I would definitely do 2. That's what we call for in our install manual.
Okay.
Why do you? So I haven't seen that a lot. You see that pretty often?
Yeah, not a lot, but a lot of times you just go up and look, and you'll see one screw. Maybe they're like 12 inches apart, but they'll just put one in the middle. And sometimes and then maybe they'll shoot it with some finished nails.
Gotcha.
Do you recommend butting the fascias or the sub, or do you recommend 45 and create a 45 to join the two? Is there any glue? Do you recommend gluing those products together?
So I think the biggest thing is the fastener. PVC is a pretty strong product. If you don't put those fasteners in there, it will literally it'll break the deck. So I think the fastener is the biggest thing. You can definitely, add glue to it, but it's really the fastener that's the key to holding it in place. The product is gonna move. So when and obviously PVC glue does a great job of cementing the products together. So if the product is trying to move and it can't, I've literally seen deck boards break.
I'm talking about like the fascia boards, like fascia.
Oh,
create a 45 joint.
Yep.
And then gluing that together, and then obviously screwing it in.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that stuff you have to prime, right? Sand and prime. Can you just sand it and paint it? Sand it, prime it, paint it. I know your other material you don't have to do anything on some of the traditional Azek that you can buy at Home Depot. And if they want to paint that, I see it painted a lot. We all go out there and we'll see some Azek painted. Does that have to be prepped?
Yeah, so if it's traditional Azek, what I would say is make sure you're still adhering to the paint, to the solar reflective paints that we recommend. You don't have to scrape it and prep it as much, but what I will tell you is that it takes longer to cure. And I would probably recommend if someone's going to do that, then I would just go with the Paint Pro, just because it's gonna cure faster. And it's as you know, if things are sitting out over time, they're just going to get marred and scratched up.
Any special cleaning instructions if, like, 5 years in, there's cobwebs and dirt, and is it just resistant to just power wash it?
Yeah, I mean, so I would recommend a low PSI. I don't think you want to go above 1500 when you're cleaning it. But yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about that product is you can clean it, you can power wash it. We do have a universal cleaner that we can use. To be honest with you, a lot of times Dawn dish soap works very well. That and power washing, and you should be good to go with any issue. I also was talking about this earlier, but especially with any kind of imperfection, like in our decking and stuff, if you see light scratching, you could actually take a heat gun and just with a brush, you can brush that stuff right out, which is nice. There's almost nothing you can do to the product that can't be fixed because it is a plastic product. So it's very fixable in a lot of respects.
Even the composite stuff, Dan?
Yeah, because so with the composite, it's a capped PVC material. So the capping on the outside is PVC. On the inside is where you get plastic with wood fiber, but the cap itself can be fixed and cleaned.
So even like on my steps where the rubber mats took the color out of it and left a big square on it, you're saying I can actually heat that up with a heat gun?
Yep, you can revitalize that product, which is nice. That happens. I get a lot of calls for that where a homeowner left a mat out. I actually, so I'm guilty of that. I just had my deck done, and my wife put a carpet in the area, so you can already see where the carpet ends. So I'm gonna have to roll it back. I'm gonna take a heat gun with a brush and just brush it out.
So what you're saying, like a paintbrush or a hard brush?
A hard bristle brush, yeah, just like a regular hard bristle cleaning brush.
It's funny that you say that because I heard that from detailers for cars saying all the plastic bumpers that fade and everything. One guy told me that he heats it up with a heat gun. And
then there's another good trick is we have so if you go to a lot of jobs where they had like railings that were glossed and the gloss over time has just died out, you can actually it's very similar to what happens with car headlights. It's that oxidation effect. You can actually buy, we have a cleaning solution. If you apply it, it will re-shine it back up again. That's why it's funny because we're actually going more towards matte finish colors now because the gloss just fades out over time and you have to maintenance it, which is kind of something we don't really want to have to do.
So go ahead, Scott.
When we go to a house and we see your product on a house, I'm just saying, it might be other competitors too, and we see the spacing in between the shingles, some areas are real wide, some are real tight. What's going on there? Where you see the big gaps, or is there I don't want to answer it. I want you to answer it. Is there a temperature setting on your shingles, on your products? If it's real hot, you got to install it at this point, and if it's colder, is there a different?
Yeah, I'd say the ideal temperature is the 40-degree mark, right? So if you're under 40, then you can leave yourself a gap. It's going to expand, right? If you're above that, then it's as expanded as you can get, and you want to be tight.
Are there markings on there for the installers to know whether the different temperatures, like some shingles will have temperature settings on there?
Yeah, I believe in our install guide it'll call for that. I can follow back up with you on that. Definitely in the field, that's what we would recommend. As far as like just pay attention to when you're installing it, especially during the summer months. Like we tend to recommend if you're not going to use our products, store them in a cool, dry place if you're not going to use them right away. And if it's been sitting, baking in the hot sun, just bear in mind that it's as expanded as it's going to get. So it may retract when the colder weather hits, which is, it's New England. That's what we get here.
Can you just like us? We go to these new houses with your product on it, great product and everything. Can you just kind of go over some of the things that you've seen as a representative of the company that you go, wow, this was installed wrong, and here's why? Why we see it, lifting, buckling, warped. What are you seeing when you go out
So
there? The reason
I would say the biggest issues are when people aren't adhering to the paint restrictions that on our website. So on our Azek Exteriors website, we do approve certain paint manufacturers, certain ratings on the paint. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, just don't pay attention to that, and then what ends up happening is it traps the heat into the product. The product will overexpand, and then that's where you're going to get a lot of warping. I've literally seen PVC pull off the house because of heat and expansion. So I'd say not adhering to the correct paints is one of the biggest issues we run into. The other big issue I would say is fastening. You and I talked about not using the correct fasteners. And then you're going to see rusted out, holes of where these fasteners are. I would say those two are the biggest issues that I tend to see in most install issues.
if when we see the finished nails and it's rusted, what is a suggestion? I mean, obviously it's wrong, but can we tell our clients that this was done wrong? I mean, but yet, as long as it's staying on, it's tight, you should be okay. Should we suggest caulking, having those nail heads caulked? Or is it something where they should come and put the Cortex screws in and, hope for the best? I mean,
I'd always advocate for using the correct fastener. I think the issue is going to arise as far as what they want to do to remedy that situation. What I would probably say is if they can, obviously you don't want to have to tear everything out to reinstall it. If it's possible to swap it for the correct hardware, then I would do that. If not, I would try and see if you can patch it the best you can. But it's kind of tough because once you do that, if it's all rusted at that point, is it going to hold? I mean, it's you start to go down that kind of ladder of issues. It's better to do it the right way the first time, you know what I mean, than just try and patch up something is wrong. I don't know if that makes sense, but
what kind of fasteners you're using for siding, a clapboard, and all that? Can you use the same fasteners? What specific fasteners are you recommending?
So oftentimes it's the Cortex ones or stainless steel screws. In our bevel product, we do have it's a nail head application. Sorry, that wasn't actually on this slide. I wanted to talk about that. We do have a bevel product, which is like clapboard to mimic a cedar clapboard. That is a face nail application. But I think as long as it's stainless is the biggest thing if it's going to be exposed.
Like regular siding nails, roofing nails, or stainless steel, any of those? I mean, do they have to be a certain length, enough to grab into the? Yeah,
enough to bite into it. I think you're looking at it's about 2 inches, if I'm not mistaken, or 2. I'll have to circle back with you on that. I can get you that information for sure.
Can your product be used with, I'm going to say, with wood and wrap with aluminum cladding? Is that something that you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I have seen a lot of aluminum applications for sure.
And that's okay. No problem.
Obviously we don't, I've seen it. I think it should be fine. Again, a lot of it kind of plays to the installation of it. But yeah, I have seen it out a lot.
Jim, you had a question? Sorry.
Yeah, so you're a premium product. How do you compare cost-wise to traditional wood siding? So
so we're definitely higher, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's a long-term sustainable product, right? So we're not, obviously since after COVID, the prices have dropped on wood. During that time, the price points were pretty close, or they were getting closer, which allowed people to really start to dip into those concepts of, hey, I'll go with PVC decking or siding because the price points are pretty close. There is a difference though in the cedar bevel. The PVC bevel that we came up with is actually pricing lower than red cedar. It's almost half the price. So I guess it depends on a case-by-case basis of what the product is. Wood generally tends to be lower, but in the cases of cedar specifically, our price points are pretty close.
Well, a lot of times after the house is constructed, homeowners or even contractors will come and they'll add, like if you see the speaker on there, you have your light boxes and your vents and everything. A lot of times if they just come and they screw into the siding, will that create a problem for expansion and contraction with your product? I mean, is there a specific way if you want to add a light or you want to put a speaker up once you start screwing into the siding? Does that create a problem with hot versus cold expansion and contraction?
It shouldn't. I mean, you could always, if you're concerned about it, depending on when you're installing it. The 1/8 rule is kind of the standard rule. So if you can give yourself 1/8 of an inch gap for a possible expansion contraction, but part of that might be is when you're installing it. If you're installing it in the summer, then it's the most expanded. If it's in the wintertime, then you may have some expansion. So that could be something you can factor in depending on what you're installing and where.
You're saying when you say 1/8, you mean actually pre-drill something a little wider than your fastener so it moves a little bit? Is that what you're talking about?
No, like 1/8 of an inch gap between the product and where it would start or where something else might abut it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you mount the bracket, like that speaker on there, you say you got the bracket and you just go screwing into the siding, is that going to make it? I mean, we see it all the time with vinyl siding. Is that going to work with yours? I mean, so you still have to,
No, it shouldn't. I don't think in that amount of space, especially if the product was fastened correctly, it shouldn't warp it that bad.
And you said the decks have to breathe too. So if I want to put your material on a deck and I say, you know what, I want to make it a storage. I want to put stuff onto my deck and store it, and I enclose it in. Could that potentially be a problem for the decking? I mean, or should there be airflow under there?
Yeah, I mean, I would always say, airflow is never a bad thing with PVC. If you're going to close it off that or restrict its movement or its breathability, then you could run into some possible issues. But it'd have to be on a case by case basis. Like, is it a shaded area? Is it an area that's always getting sun? So there are some variables on that.
So if people don't fur it out on the house, that it could work.
Yeah, because it's not breathing. Yeah.
Okay, and is that something that you've seen when you?
So the cladding application is relatively new. I'd say it's within the last few years. You're seeing a lot of growth on it. I haven't seen it as much because I think most people are adhering to the install guidelines. I haven't seen as many cheats on it yet. If you see one, let me know. But I haven't run into it yet.
Anything else that we could look for that you would bring to our attention to look for to say, hey, this isn't right? Gaps along the clapboard ends. I mean, should they be caulked or you just leave them open? I know, like they say about the Hardy, about caulking the edges and not caulking the edges. What's your thoughts?
So with our product, for the most part, you can butt it tight, and I wouldn't really worry about the caulking so much. Is if you can butt it tight, then depending on if it's already kind of expanded, then the retraction shouldn't be that bad. Like in our cedar bevel product, the product is very thin, so the profile of it, even if it were to retract, wouldn't be very much. I think one of our coworkers actually installed our PVC bevel during the wintertime, and he couldn't even fit during the summertime, and then he went on the winter and he couldn't even fit a credit card in it. So I wouldn't really worry about the expansion too much as long as it's fastened correctly per the install guide. It should be minimal.
I think we're good. We've covered a lot of stuff, and I think we're going to wrap up unless anybody else has any questions, which I don't see. Daniel, thank you so much for the information, and I will, by the end of the week, probably Thursday, we'll have information up on the website if anybody needs to get in contact with your company. And this was very, very informative.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, Dan. I really appreciate it. See you at
Anytime.
the next home show. Appreciate it. Thank you.
See you guys in
Bye
2
now.
weeks, guys. Thank you.
Good night, gentlemen.